Coming up in this episode of iCantCU, I'll tell you about the long trip we took to Erie, and it is long. Stick with me.
From Studio B in Swarthmore, this is the iCantCU podcast with David. It's like blind people for dummies.
Hello there, and welcome to another episode of iCantCU, your window into a world where blindness doesn't dictate ability. My name is David, at David Benj on all the socials. I really appreciate you joining me for this episode, and welcome inside Studio B. If you only saw what's over there, and there's more stuff coming over there, I'll talk about that in a couple of minutes. So primarily, I want to talk about the trip we took to Erie. And when I say we, the National Federation of the Blind of Pennsylvania had our state convention in Erie, Pennsylvania. And as I've mentioned before, in Pennsylvania, where I live in Swarthmore, and Erie, where the convention was, is the equivalent of like a Miami to Seattle journey. Wasn't quite as bad as that kind of distance, but it is far because we played connect the dots with the cities along the way, because we had people to pick up in Allentown and Harrisburg and near State College. And I'll talk about all that in a second. But before I get to that, do I look any different? I had my sweet 60th last week, and it was great because it fell on the same day that our Philly meetup group had a dinner schedule or planned at a German restaurant on South Street in Philadelphia, Brauhaus Schmitz, which is a place that I've been to before, and we've had meetups there before, and I love that place. So I said to Liz, I said, look, it's on my birthday. We could go. There'll be a lot of people there. In fact, there were 35 of us in the meetup that went to the dinner. So we bought a big sheet cake, and it was heavy, and it was half chocolate, half vanilla, from Sophisticakes in Drexel Hill, which is our favorite place ever since Jane went to a sweet 16 birthday back around 11 years ago. And she had her sweet 16 cake from there, which was a green eggs and ham. And if I can find a picture of that from Sophisticakes website, and I'll put a link in the show notes for their website, but it had been on the site for quite a long time. I don't know if it's still there. Again, it's 11 years ago, or almost 11 years ago for Jane. But it was just such a nice evening. I was so happy to be out with my friends there, and they had a little talent show type of thing. I didn't do anything because, as you know, I have no talent. But it was just a lot of fun, and as I've said to some friends, it's the fourth quarter of life for me now. So it's all downhill. I just hope I can pull out a Hail Mary towards the end. But let me tell you about Erie. I will tell you all about Erie in just a moment, but before I do, I just want to mention this and ask for your support this holiday season when you shop at Amazon.com. Please use my affiliate link by going to iCantCU.com/Amazon. It doesn't cost you anything more, and I may earn a small commission from your qualifying purchase. Again, that's iCantCU.com/Amazon. Thank you so much for your support. I really do appreciate it. Now, let me tell you about Erie. So, we knew it was going to be a trek. There was no getting around that. We were also coming off of our convention from last year in Harrisburg, which isn't a trek, but last year's venue was horrible. The service was terrible. The venue didn't have the food we ordered. The venue didn't have the amount of staff we needed. It was just all the way around. It was terrible, just awful. Flip to this year, where we got on a bus in Philadelphia and we pushed off at 8:34 in the morning. We pulled into Erie at 6:18 that night. Now, like I said, we went from Philadelphia to Allentown to pick up a few folks, and then from Allentown over to Harrisburg to pick up a few folks, and then from Harrisburg to Bellefonte, which is just outside State College, and we picked up a few folks. And what's surprising, each part of the journey wasn't as long as from Bellefonte to Erie. Was roughly an hour and 15 minutes to Allentown from Philadelphia, and then another hour and 15 to an hour and a half from Allentown to Harrisburg, And then same thing from Harrisburg to Bellefonte. And then 3 hours from Bellefonte to Erie. It's hard to believe, and I don't know why. I always assumed in my mind, I know on a map, if you look at a map of Pennsylvania and you say, oh, Harrisburg's the capital, it must be in the center. Well, I always assume that. It's only 2 hours from us here in the southeastern part of the state. But if you're coming from Pittsburgh or you're coming from Erie, it's around 5 hours, which is just hard to believe. Center County, which I've learned is named such because it's in the center of Pennsylvania, is where State College is. And we've done a lot of things in State College as far as the NFB-FPA has gone over the years because it is in the middle of the state. Now, as I've said before, the majority of people that go to the conventions and the different things come from the southeastern part of Pennsylvania. It's just how it is. Again, there were 45 people on the bus going and 1 dog, and 43 coming back because a couple of people took an Uber from Erie to Buffalo and then flew down to Baltimore because Baltimore was where one of the people lived. He was a vendor that came along, and the other person was someone who was giving a speech at some point somewhere down in that area. I don't know exactly where. But it was a long ride, and I, for some reason, was named bus captain, which I wasn't thrilled with that. Bus czar, I would have preferred, maybe bus, I don't know. But they called me the bus captain, don't know why. But I was the one in charge, and I was dreadfully afraid of leaving someone behind when we stopped. Because when we stopped, people got off and people came back on at different times, whether it was when we stopped just for a restroom break, but then somebody decided to order some food or whatever. So I was afraid that I was going to end up leaving someone. There and back, we left no one, which was great. And again, it was a long ride, but we kind of passed the time. I came up with the idea of doing trivia questions, and Liz and I ran to Target and we got $5 Target gift cards. And so if you got a correct answer, you got a $5 Target card. So going out, and I won't really dwell on the bus because it was just roughly 9 hours or so. And when you factor in, I left my house, I don't remember how much longer than the bus, but I probably left my house at 7, a little after 7. And the bus didn't leave, like I said, until 8:34. So you have to add that on, at least on the going part. And then coming back, I waited until everybody got their Ubers or CCT or Lyft, or they had someone come and pick them up. So I was the last one to leave. And I'll talk about that on the flip side at the other end of the convention story. But I came up with these questions, and Mark Bias, who is in the Keystone chapter, he got 4 of the questions right. So he walked away with the most gift cards. He had $20 in Target gift cards. One of the questions that I came up with was in 1940, that was the year of the first National Federation of the Blind Convention, not NFB of Pennsylvania, National Federation of the Blind, the whole thing. There were 7 states at it. It was conducted in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. So obviously, Pennsylvania was one of them. You don't have it in Wilkes-Barre and then not have Pennsylvania at the table. So I asked people to give me answers, and it took quite a while. It took quite a while for everybody to get to it. The funny thing was, we traveled the day after the election, so everybody had the election on their mind, and on the different news channels that were showing election results kept talking about I don't remember if they called it blue zone, whatever they called it, the blue wall. And so it took a couple minutes to get through everybody. And the way, you can't obviously raise your hand. I'm not going to see somebody raising their hand with an answer. So the way, when you're in a group of a bunch of blind folks and you're asking, or at a Keystone meeting or a state convention meeting, whatever it might be, you say your name and then you wait to be recognized. So if somebody is saying something and I have something to add, I'll say my name, David, and then the person who's talking will continue talking until they get to the end of their thought or their sentence, and then they'll call on me. Or if somebody else was before me, they'll call on them and then me. So that's what I was asking people to do. So, and again, we were on the bus. I had the microphone, but I was in the front of the bus. And as I said, I'm this close to, to being in the deaf-blind division. So the people in the back, sometimes I didn't hear. Well, that was one issue. The other issue was one of the people on the bus, her name was Virginia. And I don't know how many times I said, no, Virginia was not one of the original 7 states that was part of the first NFB convention. And then I realized after we got off the bus that, wait, it was Virginia asking to be recognized to give me an answer. So I feel bad for her. But it was funny. Looking back at it, it's funny. Again, roughly 9 hours on the bus. Wasn't great. It wasn't horrible, though. It's just a long time. I mean, imagine if you got on a plane at your airport and flew 9 hours. I know from Philadelphia International, if there were direct flights, I could have been in Rome or Vienna or obviously Paris or London, Barcelona, Madrid, probably Lisbon, sorry, no D on the end there. And you think I only went from Philadelphia, where we got the bus at 12th and Filbert, to the Hilton Garden Inn in Erie. Now, once we got there, it was a little bit, I don't want to say difficult, but if you're blind and you don't know what your suitcase looks like, it's hard to tell the person, hey, that's my suitcase. One person thought their suitcase was black, and it was the last one to come off the bus. It wasn't black. It had a leopard print on it. So going back, I had suggested everybody take a picture of their suitcase. Now, it was a little bit different on the way back because we had 2 hotels. We had the Hilton Garden Inn and we had the Courtyard, which was a Marriott property, both in the same venue. There was one hotel was at one end, the other hotel at the other end, and in the middle was the convention space. So the fact that we had to pull, obviously when people got on in Philadelphia, their bags went on first. So then when people got on in Allentown, their bags might have gone in front of the Philadelphia bags. And some of the Philadelphia bags might have been the Marriott property, some the Hilton property, and so forth and so on. So it made it more difficult. Going back, you just had to say where you're getting off. If you're getting off in Bellefonte, your bags were near the front so they could easily be taken off. If you're getting off at Harrisburg, same thing. Your bags are going to be close to the front. Allentown, again, it was only a handful of people from those places, maybe 7 or 9, I don't remember. But Philadelphia, whatever's left on there is coming off. And that made it easier. And everybody got their bags and everything was good to go. Now, there were some issues with the bags when people were getting into Ubers because they would order an Uber XL and then their bags wouldn't fit because it was a few people. So that was an issue. And there were also issues with the drivers canceling. And the one person who had a driver cancel, I said, oh, well, did you mention that you were blind? She's like, no, I didn't mention that because I didn't want them to cancel. And that's a big issue. If I haven't mentioned it before, and I think I have very recently, when I would order a rideshare, I would always message the driver if I could to say, hey, I'm blind. Call out my name when you arrive, and here's what I'm wearing. And I have a long white cane. As my friend Brian said to me, drivers don't realize that if you have the long white cane, you probably don't use a guide dog. So they might think, oh, it's a blind person. I'm not going to pick them up because I don't want a dog in my car. And it's been an issue and for multiple reasons. And I'll put a link in the show notes to the latest episode of, well, it's not the latest episode now, a recent episode of That Real Blind Tech show that I was on where Brian tells the story of going to the DMV. I won't say any more, but check out that episode. It has to do with Wes, which is his guide dog. So once we got off and once we got the suitcase situation set up, it was then a matter of going to check in and get set up for our rooms. And the property was very nice. I stayed at the Hilton. I'm a Hilton Honors member, which is their rewards program. I am for Marriott as well, but I don't if I have any points, it's a very few. Hilton, I get them from staying at Hilton, from using Lyft, and from Hilton Honors Dining, which is when you go out to some restaurants like Brauhaus Schmitz, they participate in that. So I got some points for that when we were there on my birthday. So we get set up, and again, I don't know the layout of the hotel, but my big thing is always wanting to take the stairs. Obviously, when I'm carrying a suitcase, I'm not going to take the stairs. And I had a big suitcase because I had a bunch of stuff in there that was not necessarily going to come home with me, plus my suit, plus another jacket, because I was presenting for one of the days. And I'll tell you about that in a second. When we checked in, I checked in and I went to my room. I was told where my room was. They told me, get off the elevator, hang a left, then an immediate right, and you're at the end of the hallway. Well, to my surprise and joy, right next to my room was the stairs. So it was great. And I was only on the second floor. So that I never took the elevator again, except for when I was checking out. I took people who, again, because I have a little bit of sight is better than no sight. So I took a couple of folks who didn't know where they were going to their rooms, or got them either close to their rooms or went right to their door. And a lot of people do that. And that's what happens if you are a person that has some vision instead of no vision. You're always helping someone find the elevator or whatever it might be. You might not have great vision, but again, even a little bit of vision is better than none. And I always feel that it's, I should be helping people out. Number one, because even though I have limited vision, it's better than somebody trying to figure how to go and what to do. And there was someone that I helped a couple of times that was using IRA, which is that call in where they have bonded folks. In this case, you didn't necessarily need to use IRA for that because Hilton has an agreement with Be My Eyes. So you could have gotten someone from Be My Eyes to do it, because you're not showing sensitive information when you're trying to find the elevator in the Hilton. And in most cases, the Be My Eyes people have a layout of the hotel so that they can pull that up on their screen and direct you how to go. And again, they're also using your camera, or in this case, it was a person named Chris who is on the tech team with me. He had the Meta glasses on, and I'll talk more about that in a couple of minutes too. So I feel it's my responsibility to help the folks get there. And there's another couple of people who are in the same boat as me that have, in fact, some have even a little bit better vision than I do, feel the same way. They just want to help out. And that's all I want to do. So constantly doing those things. So that night was pretty much a wash. Again, it was nice to walk around. I ended up having dinner in the hotel with a couple of folks. One thing that I like to do when I get to a new place is to have a look around. And because we got in late and ate dinner a little later than normal, it was pretty quiet in both hotels and the conference center. So I just walked around and had a look around to kind of get a feel for what's where. The Marriott had a quote unquote Starbucks bistro. And what that meant was it wasn't a real Starbucks, and I couldn't get iced tea there that I would want. And I could get alcoholic drinks there if I wanted. I didn't want the one, but of course, as you know, I definitely wanted the other. I also looked through the convention center where the different rooms were. Now, I didn't read the signs for what was where, and I didn't look at the smaller rooms that were on another hallway a little bit tucked away. But at least I knew where the main registration area was, where the hospitality suite was, and how to get there from both hotels. So that all worked out. And again, I had a good feeling for it, because then the next day when somebody said, oh, where is this? I could take them to where that was. And I know that if you've got sight, it might not be a big deal, but when you don't have sight or very limited sight, you can't just look around and see where the line is or to see where there might be people sitting at a table. You can't do that. So by going around and doing a walkthrough, it made it a lot easier in the coming days. And I was happy that I had the chance to do that. Now, after I did that, there really wasn't anything else going on there. It was probably 10 o'clock. The bar was closing and none of my group was there anyway. So I wasn't going to sit there and drink iced teas from there. I'm telling you, when I go away and there's not a Starbucks that has the regular iced tea, I go to sleep early. I mean, maybe I should try that here, but I can't because I have too much stuff to do here. But it's just not fun for me because I don't have the caffeine and I don't have the computer to do the work. And that was another thing that as I was at the conference, I realized that I have got to get better with voiceover on the computer. I feel I'm pretty good with it on the phone, other than my finger issues trying to do the rotor. And one day I'll do a demonstration of the rotor for folks who don't use voiceover so you get an idea of what that even is. Because a lot of people don't know what the rotor does. And the NFB of Pennsylvania Tech Committee is going to do some shorts showing not just the rotor, but things that will be helpful to learn on your iPhone, and something that hopefully will help the NFB of PA YouTube channel get some traction and then also get some signups on the email list. So that was the end for that day. And I knew it was going to have to be an early morning the next morning, because we had to set up the sound equipment, a lot to go through. And then when Thursday afternoon was the tech seminar called Tech in Care of Business. It's kind of a cross between obviously tech and obviously business. And I don't know if we're going to do the same situation next year as far as that seminar, but I have some ideas and I'll talk more about that in a minute. But we had to have the tech stuff set, or the sound stuff set up for me to do the tech seminar. I don't really know that soundboard. I certainly don't know where the connections go, and figuring that stuff out for me, was hard. And there was a person there that helped out. She did the majority of the work. Michelle did the majority of the work, but I was carrying the speakers, and the speakers are huge. And I'm going to bring the soundboard, and it's going to be right to my right in that section of the room in the coming weeks, because we're going to work on it so that we all understand, both myself and Chip, who is on the tech committee, and a couple others, anybody who's in the Philadelphia area who wants to learn the soundboard, we're going to do it here so that we can have it for next year in Harrisburg from November 13th to the 16th. So I started to feel a little stressed at the fact that we're not getting this thing set up, and there was something missing and it wasn't working. We had it set up and then you couldn't hear anything. So it was frustrating, because then I was starting to get nervous because I knew I had to go back and get my jacket. I had bought a brand new jacket from Brooks Brothers that I basically wore. Right now I have a black turtleneck and a fleece shirt on, but I was going to wear the turtleneck, jeans, and this jacket. And I was terrified I was going to get something on it, because I usually do. And talking to our national rep who was there from the NFB of Virginia, his name was Tracy Safranco. He said, I usually avoid sauces, because if there's a sauce, it's going to end up somewhere on me and I'm never going to know that it's there. So I was paranoid about it, and I thought I was in the clear at one point when I had the jacket on later that day. But then I was getting somebody coffee, and I'm thinking, oh God, if I spill this coffee, that's going to leave a mark. It was stressful when I had that on. I don't know why I put that stress on me, but as far as I know, I didn't get anything on that jacket. My suit from Saturday night at the banquet, that's a different story, and I'll tell you that in a minute. But the tech seminar had a diverse amount of folks on there. We had somebody, Tim and Tess from Patton, which is an assistive tech training, and where you can go and borrow some equipment to see, hey, if this is something that you could use. Very, very helpful. And that's for students. That's geared for students up to, I think it was 21. I don't remember. That's when I went to Pittsburgh back in September, when I went to Malvern in October. And so it was great that they were there, because what they do is very important for our community, we had Congressman Mike Kelly there. We had the Blind Kitchen chef Deborah Erickson there. She came in via Zoom. And that was an issue with the soundboard because the audio levels from the Zoom were much higher than the audio levels from the microphone that I was using. So that part was just one of the reasons why in the coming weeks, I'm going to have that soundboard over there to mess around with. Also to have the computer hooked up to it so that when somebody comes on, and like me, I could use music from White Canes Connect, or we can we can use the music that Brian uses when I'm on That Real Blind Tech Show, using the lines from the movie Slapshot, Dave's a Killer, Dave's a Mess. There's a song out there that sings that, and just that little blurb. And that's what when I'm on That Real Blind Tech Show, that's what he uses, which I think is hysterical. All of that. And then I asked the person who was doing the Zoom, I asked her, I said, "You're recording, right?" And she's like, "Oh, no, I wasn't." She missed the congressman. She missed half of the Blind Kitchen, Deborah Erickson. She missed one other person. And I was really disappointed, especially because Congressman Mike Kelly, after his words, Lynn Heights, the president of the NFB of Pennsylvania, gave him a little commemorative coin that was pretty much made possible from what the congressman had worked on previously for our community. And he's a very strong proponent of our organization. And it was disappointing that we missed those things. Now, one of the things that was disappointing as well was the people on Zoom weren't muted. All of this stuff was out over Zoom. I asked Michelle, I said, make sure everybody on Zoom is muted. We're not taking questions from them. We're not allowing them to interact. They can listen, and that's it. So occasionally you would hear a dog barking, or you'd hear somebody saying, "What are you going to have for dinner?" or whatever it might be. As we were going through, and actually before, Stacy had come up and asked if she could help out, and was kind of rebuffed in a very, very bad way by the convention chair. "We don't need you. Michelle is here." Wasn't recorded at the beginning, and everybody wasn't muted. Stacy knows Zoom, I'm sure, much better than most folks in the affiliate. There might be some folks on the tech team who might know it as well as Stacy, but Stacy would have been the right one to have help out there. That's all she wanted to do, was help out. And when we kept having the interruptions over Zoom from other people, I texted her when someone was speaking, and I said, "Hey, could you help out with Zoom?" And she said, "No, I can't, because the affiliate computer is logged in. I can't log in as the host, and I can't take the hosting now." I said, "Okay." She was very disappointed with the way she was rebuffed. And there was no way she was going to help out at that point after the way she was talked to. And it just wasn't right. And that was the main theme for the entire convention. I talked to several people who offered to help in various ways. They never said, "Hey, you can help do this," or "You can help do that." I was there, I guess it was the first day before the tech seminar. I watched the hotel bring all the lunches out. And they were boxed lunches, and they were actually really good, to be honest. But they were left on a table. Nobody was there. And I said to Lynn Heights, I said, "Who's supposed to hand out the boxed lunches? Is it us, or is it the hotel?" And she said, "I think it's us." I said, "Well, the lunches were just delivered to that table over there. Do we have anybody that can help out?" And just at that moment, just perfect timing, somebody came over to me and said, "Hey, so-and-so from the Lions, is there anything, what could I help out with?" And I asked Lynn, I said, "Who does the lunches?" And she said, "We're supposed to." I said, "Oh, then you can do the lunches. They're right over there. They're going to have a ticket. And when they give you the ticket, it's going to say turkey or roast beef or veggie, or there was one ham. And you give them that correct box and a bottle of water." And they were there. The convention chair had no idea that there was no one there to do that. Just a lot of things that I wouldn't have done the way she did them. And she was overwhelmed. She was overwhelmed and didn't know how to accept help, because she said she needed volunteers. A whole bunch of people volunteered. She didn't use them, meaning people within the NFB, and especially someone who was from out of state. I saw her walking around the exhibit hall and I said, oh, she was having trouble. She kept going back and forth. She had the Meta Ray-Bans on and she said, no, I'm just trying to try and teach the Meta Ray-Bans, or train the Meta Ray-Bans, whatever she said. I don't know if they're trainable. We, again, talked about this also on that Real Blind Tech show. But she also said to me, she said, boy, you've been running around like crazy. I said, yeah. I said, I'm trying to help out wherever I can. She said, well, it's your thing. I said, no, it's not my thing. I'm just trying to make it. I know a lot of people paid a lot of money to come here. I want to make sure they have a good time and don't get frustrated, because a lot of things for us are frustrating because we can't do something. We can't see something. Oh, where's the coffee? Oh, it's right over there. Are you pointing where's over there? Tell me where over there is. And she said, well, I told the convention chair 3 times that I'd be willing to help out. And I was never told what to do, and she never responded to me. I get it. Everybody does things differently, and it won't be that way next year, because next year I'm the convention chair. Next year I might tell you how I failed at different things, but it shouldn't have been. There were a lot of things that just weren't done, and I could go on and on about that, but I won't, because it's not fair to not have the person here to say why they were like that. Still don't know how much money we made at the convention. Usually, if we break even, that's good, because we assist the affiliate, the NFB of Pennsylvania, assists the people who can't afford. They'll pay part of the hotel. They'll kick in a little bit maybe for their meals, or they may kick in a little for their transportation, whatever it might be. So it is usually not money maker. The key is to not make it a money loser, but I don't know what we've done. We have not heard anything. It was 3 weeks ago now, and that's why I'm late recording this. I was back a week and had a whole bunch of things to do. And as I was telling my friend Ken last night, after he said, oh, are you not doing your videos anymore? I said, no, I'm still doing them. I said, I just haven't done one since I came back from Erie, and there was an issue with my camera. I was watching a video today how if you had it all set up where you just have to sit and hit the record button, that's how you should have it. And that's pretty much how I have it, except for the camera. And that is where the issue is. Now, I mentioned earlier how bad last year's convention was in Harrisburg at the Crowne Plaza. And if you're thinking about having an event at the Crowne Plaza in Harrisburg, please look elsewhere. Just look elsewhere. Nothing about that place. And I found out while we were in Erie that the hotel had changed hands. We had a convention there 2 years prior, and it was great. And now this year, last year, the new owners were there. Soap dispensers from the bathroom were on their sides, on the vanities in the public restrooms. No paper towels ever. And like I said, the food was terrible. The service was terrible. Some food wasn't cooked. Some food never came out. I mean, it was just awful. Flip side to this year, and it was great. The food was great, and what we ordered, the service was great, both at the hotels and the convention staff at the convention center. Everything about it was great. Were there hiccups here and there? Of course. You're never going to go through an entire event where it's perfect. But it was as close to perfect as you could get. If Erie wasn't a 9-hour ride away from folks in southeastern Pennsylvania, we would have it there more often. It was just fantastic. And it's a shame it's so far away, because we're never going to go back probably for another 30 years. That's the last time we were there, 32 years ago. Again, because most of the folks come from the eastern half of the state. They come from Philadelphia. Like I said, there were 38 or 40 people from the Philadelphia area, 2 from Allentown, 3 from Harrisburg. Well, 2 from Harrisburg, Hershey, and then 1 from York, who came to Harrisburg to jump on the bus there. And then 2 from Bellefonte, which is near State College. It's just a shame. And then as far as folks that came in from there were a lot of folks from the Erie area that were there, some people from Pittsburgh, And in Pittsburgh, I think is only a 3-hour or so ride. So all of it was great. The rooms were comfortable. The food was, like I mentioned, outstanding. And again, compared to last year, I mean, it was night and day. And the rooms were very nice. The majority of the event took place in the garden atrium, which is this big room. In fact, the issue there was that our speakers were against the back wall. So if you're watching on YouTube, imagine me at the podium here, and I never stood at the podium to speak. I'll get into that in a minute. But back against the wall, maybe back over in that corner over my right shoulder is a speaker, and back over in that corner against the wall is the other speaker. It's a big room. I don't know how many square feet, maybe 3,000 square feet. Plus, it is an atrium, like I mentioned. So it's got a really high ceiling and it's all glass. So the people in the back had trouble hearing. And I get that. Maybe the room was even bigger than that, but it was a big expanse. And we couldn't, our cords were only 25 feet long. The venue, we couldn't hook up to the venue sound because they were having trouble with it. And we knew this going in, and we thought it wasn't going to be too big of an issue because we have the speakers. It was an issue from time to time. But everything about this place, they couldn't have been more helpful. The staff was so friendly. Every time there were a couple of people that would recognize me when I would come back up. Oh, you're coming back for, oh, you got lunch today? I said, yep, sure did. And da-da-da-da-da. And they just couldn't be any more helpful. And it was just so refreshing to have folks like that. And that's called the Ambassador Banquet and Convention Center in Erie on Peach Street. Just outstanding. I only went to one place outside of that in Erie, and that was to a place on Lake Erie for dinner one night, Thursday night. We went out for dinner. Smugglers something, Smugglers Notch, Smugglers something. If I can find it, I will put a link in the show notes. It was really good. We sat right next to a fireplace, which was great. Not that it was that cold there when we were there, but it was cool. And to be by the fire was nice. Now, it was towards the end of their operating hours that day. So we also had our choice of seats, but very good stuff there. And I think everybody had a good time, both learning all the different things. In the tech seminar, as I mentioned, we had all those folks. We had Dan Gardner from View Plus, and they make these embossers that take images and emboss them so they can do tactile maps. They can do pictures. Last year I remember he had a picture of Bart Simpson that was embossed so you could feel how Bart was, with his spiky hair and whatnot. And it was just that the tech stuff was great. We had Chiadika from C-Ringe, who we had on an episode of White Canes Connect. I'll put a link in the show notes. It was just a bunch of different tech things and business things. We had Pam from the Pennsylvania Association of Blind Merchants during the tech seminar. Friday are meetings for the various divisions. So the blind merchants met at 8 o'clock. Parents of blind children met at 8 o'clock in a different room. And those are all very interesting things because some of the people are from Erie. We had them in attendance at our merchants meeting. We had someone phone in from Harrisburg via Zoom for part of the BEP, and he talked about that. I'll leave the other things go about some issues with him in another episode. So that's what happens during the day on Friday. Friday at lunchtime, we had the NFB board meeting. That got a little contentious. More on that in another episode. I'm not going to get into it here. And then after that on Friday, there wasn't a lot going on. Again, I was just wandering around trying to help folks get to where they needed to be, whether it was the exhibit hall, and I went there and I have some clips from people in the exhibit hall to play when we have episodes for the convention that kind of thank them because they come, in some instances, they came a long way. And because most of our members are from the eastern half of the state, we only had about 80 people to 85 people, I think, at this year's convention. Again, I don't have the final number, so I don't know. When in many years we have well over 115, 120, things like that. So exhibit hall I'm sure traffic was a little low. Where the exhibit hall was a little bit out of the way, so maybe people didn't find it. But I did some clips for that. I talked to a few folks who I don't get to see very often. It was just a very nice time. Saturday is what's called general sessions, and that's 15 to 20 minutes per speaker, and they talk about different things. I presented, I'm trying to think of what I presented on. What did I present on? I presented something. I don't I don't remember right now because I presented each day and I don't remember what I did at general sessions. But I was during general sessions because in my head, my thought was to take each of the recordings and edit them. So if somebody, again, C. Ringe did a little presentation. So I'm going to take her little segment. I have a picture of her at the podium speaking, and I'll make a clip of that. It'll be an episode, a recap of the Erie convention, and it'll be a 10 to 20 minute episode with just Chiatica presenting. And we had, like I said, the people from Patton, anything that we have that I can use. So I was getting a picture of everybody that was up front at the podium. And I would go back and sit down, and then the next person would come up and I'm like, and I'm basically sitting on the hardwood floor taking the image in front of the podium because not everybody who was presenting was blind. So I didn't want to get right up in their face. So I was, a lower angle and taking the picture from there. But my knee started to kill me after, crouching down and then walking on my knees over in front of the podium to get the picture and then going back. It's just a lot of information. It's very, very helpful for folks who are new or newish to the organization. They hear from these different people. They had a couple of people who went to the national convention last year in Orlando. They just hear all the different stories and hear what's available to them, both services-wide, whether it's from Patton or from the Bureau of Blindness and Visual Services. That's another one that we had on our tech seminar, Taking Care of Business. We had Chris Cowan from BBVS talking about the business enterprise program and the small business program, where they will give you money to start a small business, up to 30 grand. And again, just something that is very useful for someone if you're blind and you want to open a business. And so it's just a lot of good information throughout the day on Saturday. Then Saturday night, we have this banquet. The banquet is a formal event. Everybody's dressed in suits and dresses and whatnot. And then we hear from both the president of the affiliate, which is Lynn Heights, like I mentioned. We hear from our national representative, who, like I said, was Tracy Safranco from the NFB of Virginia, who was our national representative. And there's a few other things that go on. There's door prizes throughout. I won a great door prize from some chocolates from a place in Erie called Ruffalo, I think, or Ruffalo. Oh my God, so good, called sponge candy, which are basically these, I don't remember what Liz said they were inside, but milk chocolate covered, and they were crunchy inside, and the milk chocolate was so good. Again, I'll find the link. I'll put it in the show notes. So I won that. There's an auction Friday night. God, how could I forget the auction? Friday night, there's an auction. And this year we did an auction and bingo. Went a little long. The bingo games took a little long. The auction went long. But again, organizational issues was the reason that went long. The auction is great. And Denise Brown, who's the president of the Greater Philly chapter, she does the auctions, and it is just outstanding. It's my favorite part. I won something at the auction. I won some cookies. Actually, I guess I won the cookies the next day. At the auction on Friday night, I ended up bidding on the Keystone chapter basket because it had $200 in credit cards and a bunch of games and toys, and it was only going to sell for $225. So I bid it to $250, hoping somebody would then bid on it more, but nobody did. So I have that. All the toys and games are going to be in a basket for the Pennsylvania Association of Blind Merchants fundraiser in Harrisburg on the 7th. If you are in Pennsylvania or near Harrisburg on December 7th, we have this thing going at the Best Western premiere. And I know, don't shake your head at Best Western, because this place is awesome. It's where our convention is going to be next year. It's a very nice place. There's a very nice restaurant inside, but they have great convention space. So the blind merchants have a fundraiser and holiday party. Tickets are $35. I'll put a link in the show notes so you can order them. You've got to order them by the 2nd of December if you want to go to that. I'm going to be taking the train out there. There's a few other folks I'll be on with. I know a lot of folks from Philly are going. So whether we're all on the same train or not, I don't know. But so the blind Barbie and the Braille Uno and the blindfold twister and large print Scrabble, there's a couple other things, large print playing cards, they're all going to be in one basket. It'll be a toy and games basket, perfect for the holidays. We'll put that up for auction. And I took the gift cards out, which I also provided. Now, I used credit card points to get the gift cards, the $200 in gift cards. But at least the thing made a little bit of money. I mean, obviously, the NFB with the $250 I paid for it gets all of that. And so does it matter that it didn't go for the over $400 that it was worth? To me, it did. And that's why I bid on it and hoping somebody else would bid more. Liz had given a Coach purse. Liz bought a Coach purse back in 2019. And it was pink and it was nice. She liked it. But when she got it home and before she used the material on to weatherproof it, she realized that the shoulder strap wasn't long enough for her. So she never did anything with it. She never used the weatherproofing on it. It sat in a box. And so when they were saying, oh, could we do, we're going to do designer purses for some auction items and bingo. I said, Liz, why don't you provide that Coach bag? I said, if you're not going to use it, let's do something with it. So Liz donated that. Now, she thinks we paid around $250 for it. It ended up going for $130. Also disappointing to me. But again, it made money and it's out of our closet and was never used. So all of that was great that, it turned it into money, but to me, it was a little low. And there were some other issues with the bingo. Whether we move forward with the bingo next year, I don't know. But I'm interested to see what kind of money the auction generated. And I guess we'll find out when we finally have our auction, our convention meeting wrap up in a week or so. And then Sunday, the last day, so that was Friday night, Saturday, I told you, the banquet was very nice. The meal was great. There was a little bit of an after party in the same venue where Angelina was playing some music, DJing, if you will. And I got drenched with a red wine on my suit and it covered everything that was exposed, my jacket, my shirt, my tie, my pants. So we'll see how that, when we get it back from the cleaners, we'll see how that worked out. And then there was a post party where a few of us went to the hospitality suite and just hung out for a little bit. And that was the night I stayed up the latest, probably didn't get back into my room until 1:30. And I knew I'd be on the bus for 9+ hours the next day and be, able to sleep. So it wasn't a big deal. Sunday, we have a breakfast where I presented again, and I did it on fundraising at the local level. And the different chapters talked about what we have done throughout the year. So I presented for Keystone. Thank God Harriet texted me the night before saying, here's what we did this year, because I would have forgotten everything. But it was great that she texted me with that. All in all, like I said, it was just outstanding. And we did a little bit of trivia on the way back. And it was just a fun time. So on Saturday at General Sessions, every so often, they had a little bit of an auction, and cookies usually do very well. So Lynn had made 6 dozen cookies. Actually, she'd made 12 dozen cookies, and 6 dozen at a time were up for auction. So those usually bring a lot. I bought one batch, and it was, I want to say I paid $90. I want to say $90. I don't remember. I just knew that this was something I could win and have it gone before I even got off the bus, because I knew I was going to walk up and down the aisle of the bus offering the cookies to people. And it was great. The people that liked it, and I didn't have to take anything home other than the empty Tupperware container that the 6 dozen cookies were in. So that was a lot of fun. And then again, we got off the bus. Everybody got their luggage. I made sure everybody was good to go. We collected some money for the bus driver named Mindy. I don't remember how much. I want to say we got around 173, 273. I don't remember how much it was, but it was a decent chunk of change. I wish it could have been more because she was awesome. She was very, very patient with us. And if you've ever been around a bunch of blind people. Everybody has a little bit of a different thing they need or to do or whatever it might be. And I try not to be that person, but sometimes I am, I know. But when there's a bunch of us, it's people not, like I said, not knowing their luggage or maybe putting their luggage down and then not being able to find their luggage, whatever it might be. She was very patient. She was an awesome driver, and everything about her and the bus was nice, other than that we were on it for so long. That was the issue. It was just a long ride. That's all there was. So I'm looking forward, like I said, to next year where I'm convention chair. I've got some other ideas to do things. I've already recruited Jane. Jane will come down and help out. There were some things that were really bad that happened this year as far as, again, organizationally speaking. When you go to a convention and you sign in, you're given a packet. It has your ID badge. Whether we do ID badges, I don't know, because why do blind people who can't see the ID badge need them? We'll talk about that, I'm sure, at different meetings throughout the year. But they're also given those meal tickets. Well, when I went up, and this happened to a lot of people, when we went up to register to get our packet, they had to go through a list, find our names on a list, and then say, okay, he gets Thursday turkey, Friday turkey, Saturday lunch, Saturday banquet, veg, and then Sunday breakfast. That should have already all been done. And that's why the line was long. There were times that the registration wasn't manned. Some people couldn't get in. Again, things that I will address and we'll make sure that doesn't happen. It just shouldn't have happened. And I will make sure that that doesn't happen this year. But all in all, it was just a great time, great learning, great being around a lot of folks that we don't always get to see. It's just a very enjoyable time. Even last year when it was bad, it was still nice getting together with people. It just wasn't as enjoyable because we didn't get the food we wanted and whatever. But it was great this year. And I hope we didn't lose a ton of money. Maybe we even made a little. I doubt it, but maybe. But I'm looking forward to next year, and I'm looking forward to seeing how the Best Western Premier does for our Christmas party, the Merchants Christmas party, because that'll give us an idea of how it is next year, November 13th to the 16th for our convention. But I really do appreciate you listening to this episode of iCantCU, episode 275. Show notes are available over on the website, iCantCU.com/275. That's iCantCU.com/275. Numerically speaking. And remember, iCantCU sounds like a whole sentence, but it's only 7 characters long. I, capital C, A-N-T, capital C, capital U.com/275. Now, you say, why did I say capital C and then the second capital C and the capital U? When you listen using a screen reader, whether it's VoiceOver, JAWS, NVDA, whatever it might be, and you put it all lowercase, it sounds like iCantCU. But when you capitalize those letters that I did, and I use a lowercase I at the beginning, it says iCantCU. That's why I say it that way. Please reach out on the socials at David Benj, even now on Blue Sky. So Twitter, Threads, X, same as Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, where you can listen to these episodes, or youtube.com/the @ and then iCantCU to watch these episodes if you're listening right now and you'd like to see what Studio B looks like or what I look like. You don't need to know that. It's okay. Please reach out with questions, comments, show ideas, any kind of help you might give me, tips for next year's state convention, 646-926-6350. I look forward to hearing from you via voicemail. You have up to 3 minutes. Leave your name and town if you do leave a voicemail. Again, 646-926-6350. Please give me a call. You can also reach out via email, iCantCUpodcast@gmail.com, iCantCUpodcast@gmail.com. Thank you so much. Be well. Stay safe, and I'll talk to you in the next episode.
Thank you for listening to the iCantCU podcast with David. Please rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen. And don't forget to share the podcast with your friends.